When you don't have a lot of experience with women, the only thing on your mind is, how can I sleep with women? But the more experience that you get and the more women that you meet, you realize that some women just aren't worth the energy. And this isn't a boys versus girls video. There is a practical takeaway here that will help your dating life. It took me from someone who is needy and useless around girls to being able to confidently have romantic connections and without feeling like a peasant. So when I first started wanting to get better with women, I thought of women as like a singular entity. Almost like they were the city of Troy and I had the Trojan horse and I had to penetrate their city with my Trojan horse. No pun intended. All I wanted to do was to quote unquote succeed with women and have a girlfriend, you know, the whole deal that comes along with that. So the problem was my starting point was from a place of scarcity. And basically that means I wasn't getting any girls. I didn't have a lot of options. I didn't have a big social circle. Wasn't going out to meet women. I was using dating apps, but you know, dating apps are pretty trash. And so when you're in scarcity, you don't have a lot of options, then you can be pretty desperate, as you might imagine. That might be when you sort of relax your standards. And I'm not gonna say that I relaxed my standards too hard now, but certainly I was pretty desperate. And I also didn't have a coach. I didn't have anyone around me with more dating success who could help realign me with some of the worldviews that I had messed up, some of the ways that I was talking to women that was not really benefiting me, let's just say. And so there was like a major flaw in my operating system, or basically my map of how to attract women. My major problem was that I was sold on every single girl that I saw before she even spoke a single word to me, before I knew her. So before she had even opened her mouth, I was won over. And I think a lot of guys can relate to that. So instantly, this girl had my full validation when I was talking to her. It was like I could have bent down on a knee and married her on the spot back then. That's how down bad I was. That's how instantly they were winning me over. And so kind of imagine it like this. Imagine that you applied at a job and they just didn't look at your resume at all. They just took one glance at you, they didn't interview you, and they're like, okay, you got the job, you're in. You start training Monday. They throw you your uniform. Now, it would have to be because you applied at McDonald's. Or it would have to be because that job isn't very valuable. You know, there's no qualification process necessary for getting this job. Okay, so they're just letting everybody in. It must be not a very good job. It must not be very high pay. It must not be very rewarding. Okay, and so when you let girls get the job that easily, which is pretty much similar, like getting the position in your life emotionally, you're McDonald's. I was McDonald's. I wasn't, a fine dining establishment. So they could tell in my eyes, in my voice, in the words that I said, that they instantly had me on an emotional level. They instantly had their hooks in me, okay? And of course, I got rejected a lot. I've been rejected more than anybody you know. And not many women wanted that job at the McDonald's. It wasn't that appetizing to them, So it didn't matter that I had a good career. It didn't matter that I was going to the gym every day and I'm, a somewhat decently looking guy. I mean, maybe not, maybe I'm ugly. Or that I'm like, a bit above average height even. None of this stuff mattered, okay? It's because my communication positioned me as low value, as easy to get, as someone who the girl insinuated must have not had a lot of social value. Okay, so it didn't matter. And when I do recall the times, like in this period of my life, where I really was able to get a date here and I was able to get a date there, it was because it was almost always that I had somehow found the behavior of not being won over instantly. So somehow I had sort of caught on to that behavior, or I had learned that from somewhere. And then I managed to get a date within that maybe day or 2 day period of my life. But basically, I didn't recognize that that was the pattern that was going on. I didn't see that from my own perspective. And I always fell back into viewing all women as that singular entity that I was talking about, who had all automatically won me over for nothing. And I was in the position of lower power, and I basically needed to win over the girl. I always just fell back into that. I didn't see, the big picture. I didn't see the pattern, So I really wanted to make a change. I started taking my dating life, I started taking my self-improvement more seriously, meditating, reading, and, I sought out mentorship. And by the way, if you are a guy watching this and you want to become a more confident communicator in like social settings, you want to start going on more dates with women consistently, like more frequently, or you're really a guy who feels like you're stuck at a certain level with the quality of women that you're attracting right now, and you want basically to attract higher quality women that more fits really your standards, you can click the link below if you want, and basically that'll allow you to book a strategy session with me. But yeah, anyways, so as I started doing that, my social skills improved. I started going on more frequent dates. And as I kept speaking with women, I kept meeting more women, something became like very clear to me. Like once I started having success, there was a certain type of girl that I was just not attracted to at all. Like, and this was a girl who was often like physically attractive, whatever, great body, great face, whatever. But it was something about her personality that just threw me off. That was just not attractive to me, right? And so basically, I like to call it sort of like the boss girl, okay? This is a girl who like takes herself very seriously. She basically acts like she's the hottest thing since sliced bread. And hey, I fully support people being confident, but there's a point where it becomes like prideful, and it's not like, okay, I'm confident in myself and I have a healthy self-esteem. There's a point where it's straight pride that's just so unattractive to me. And it's just like, I don't care how good looking you are. I just don't really want to be around that, okay? Not everybody's the same. So this is a girl that doesn't really respond to genuine teasing. There are a lot of girls with a healthy self-esteem. There's a lot of amazing women out there. But once again, you'll meet some of these boss women, or whatever, how I like to call them, and they're just no fun. Like, you can't even joke around with them. You can't like tease them in a good intentioned way where you're genuinely, trying to have fun with them and connect with them. It's coming from a place where, you have healthy self-esteem. No, these women will have none of that. You cannot tease them at all. Like I was in a Starbucks and this girl had ordered like a strawberry refresher. And so I wasn't even doing a real approach. It was just a chit chat conversation. And as we were waiting there for our coffee, I was like, okay, I see you got like the refresher. Is that any good? And she's like, yeah, it's pretty good. It's like really sweet. And she was like, it's refreshing. And so I was like, wow, well, I wonder where you got the refreshing part. And she was like, yeah, I got it from the name. It's like, no shit. And so I kept teasing her. I teased her another time. Anyways, there are just some women who don't have a good sense of humor, really. Okay, and they really take themselves too seriously. I won't get too deep into it. They're very like masculine, professional energy. You shake their hand, it's like the firm business handshake, and you're just like, oh my gosh, wow, I didn't know we were, I didn't know we were at a networking event right now. I've never been in a corporate career in my life, but I would imagine you get that sort of handshake there. Now, before, when I viewed all women as a singular entity, I assumed that my game was just trash, and that these women that I was meeting were just sort of acting like tough, or they were acting masculine because they didn't like me. And really it was a reflection of me, right? So, but when I transformed my self-esteem, like I actually started to have healthy self-esteem, you know, I transformed my social skills, I started getting good results with other women, and like basically I transformed my social life in general. Like I realized that this was just a type of woman that exists. Like there are just these women walking around, and you know, you can have a good conversation with them where they're respectful to you, but it's not always just a reflection of you. There's just women who are like this, okay? And there's just certain women who are what I would call like energetically compromising, meaning they're sort of like dragging you down to this like negative level that you don't want to be in, okay? And they might be physically attractive, like I said, but it's just not worth the energy in most cases. Okay, you have to think about the opportunity cost when you choose to spend your time and your energy on a specific girl. Okay, there's obviously the cost of you maybe getting dragged down with her energy, but then there's the cost of you spending time trying to pursue that girl versus trying to basically pursue another girl who's more aligned with you. And guys don't think about that. They don't actually think about that at all. They just say, okay, there's a girl who showed me a bit of attention, you know, a bit of validation. Now I'm gonna try to pursue that. They don't think, okay, well, maybe I could pursue this other girl. Anyways, you have to think about second and third order consequences of what's gonna happen. Not just like, okay, if I pursue this girl, I might like waste my time and I might have to like expend all this energy. But now I might miss out on this other girl. Now this girl might get might wrap me up in all of her trauma, you know, and essentially make my life a living hell. And then what's the third order consequence from that? Okay, now I, you know, go back to whatever addictions. Now I lose my job. Like there are consequences to your action, guys. There's a chain reaction here. And so once again, like sometimes it's not negative. Like the girl isn't like a bad person. The girl just isn't your style even. Like for example, me personally, I'm just not that into like introvert, nerdy women who just like sort of sit around and read books. And it's interesting because I love reading books. I'm sort of an introvert myself, but I like extrovert women. And so that's not really, you know, their fault. It's just not my preference. We just don't have chemistry. Okay? So when you realize that women aren't just this one like singular entity that you have to penetrate, that you have to sort of win over, that you're beneath, okay? There's certain women that you don't click with, and there's certain women who have a lot of emotional and attitude problems who, you know, might just be physically attractive to you, and that's basically all they have going for them. Then you start to think of women differently, okay? You no longer glamorize them for just the fact that they are women, right? So you observe women's value to yourself, not to other guys, not to society's pedestalization, but her actual value to you, because that's what matters, right? On a case-by-case basis. And then the only way to do that, of course, is to talk to them and then figure that out. It's not done from afar at that point where you look at that girl and she's hot, but you're like, oh, she's won me over. You actually have to talk to her and figure that part out. Okay, so when that happens, when you have that sort of, you know, discovery, then the dynamic completely changes when you're talking to women. And it makes your game a lot better. So now your job is to see if you like her, if you actually like her, if she's somebody unique or somebody you'd like to expend energy on getting to know better. Okay, now when I say this, a lot of guys might get the wrong idea, okay? This isn't done overtly. It's not done extremely obviously. And it's not done in a degrading way either, or a way that's sort of like try hard. All right, that's the last thing you want to be, is try hard with your game. You want to be just like smooth and flowing. So you don't pull out a clipboard, you don't start interviewing her. It's subtle, and it's an underlying frame of the interaction you're now going to have with women. It's called qualifying, and you might have heard that. So, for example, you might do a teasing question of the girl, like, wait, you're not one of those girls that's like, afraid of going outside and like having a single drop of sweat on you, are you? And so you're saying that with a smile, you're saying that with good intention, you're teasing, but at the same time, you're getting the girl to justify herself to you, okay? Because you're in the place where you're actually trying to see if she's cool, right? Remember that. So now she's essentially wanting to have your approval and explaining herself to you, which is a dynamic you want to have, but it's not obvious. It's smooth. Once again, and there's so many ways to do this, that I basically teach guys. And qualifying is not only like a verbal technique, like olive game. Like people try to tell you, hey, I'm gonna give you the words to say. Like, no, dude, if you wanna be good at this stuff, you have to understand that there's a nonverbal layer, and it goes far beyond the words, the syllables. It's your vibe of being won over more as she's basically justifying to you, explaining more about herself, and then complying with you. It's like the vibe of that happening, and that's done, basically with your nonverbals, and then also the things you say, such as that teasing question example. So you can sort of look at it like this, of this graph right here actually. So as you can see on this graph, there's a bought-in level on the y-axis, and then there's time on the x-axis. And so in the beginning, she starts in a little bit on the bought-in level because obviously you're the one initiating. You're the man. You're not the one sitting around hoping that women are gonna come up to you like some idiot, right? That's not you. So she already gets some buy-in level, but it's nowhere near like up here, right? Okay, so now immediately, after a while, you create some attraction, boom. Now we start sort of, getting her to qualify herself to you. All right, boom, now she justifies herself a little. She gets a little bit more bought-in level. Now a little bit more here, now a little bit more here. Now it's a little bit more over time until she gets to a place where, okay, I guess we could hang out. I guess we could hang out a little bit. I guess I'll give you my number. That's what you're saying to her, right? Okay, and notice how the bought-in level is nowhere near the top. I mean, up here would just be like, I'm, getting down on one knee and I'm marrying you now, right? And even in the marriage level, like you still shouldn't be fully dependent on the girl, so it should never ever get to the top. But let's not get down too distracted here. So another thing you might notice on the bought-in level is there's actually dips. Well, why is there actually dips? Why isn't it just not like a slow progression of her buying you over more than time? Well, reason being is you still want to maintain the tension of the girl not knowing for sure if she's won you over or not. And there's still some tension of basically like, can I get this guy or not, that the girl is feeling. So the experience that she's overall having is she's winning a high value guy over slowly, and it feels great, and she's buying into you, but she's still feeling that tension of, like I said, can I get this guy? And that's so important in attraction. There needs to be tension. Okay, let's say there was a girl that was like pretty attractive to you, like physically, but she just walks up to you and she just wraps her arm around you and she's like, please, can I have your babies? Now, you might feel attracted to her and you might still like, let's be real with her. Let's be real here. You still might sleep with her, right? But how actually attracted to her are you? Like, would you pursue this girl on a long-term scale? You know, and what is your respect for that girl after that? It probably might diminish, right? If she just walks up to you and wraps her arm around you, yeah, your respect for her might diminish, right? Okay, now let's take that same girl who's the same level of physical attractiveness, and she doesn't do that, right? So you're probably attracted to her more. And so it's the same thing when it comes to your behavior with women, all right? And now at this point, she's finally won you over, right? Because that's the game that you've established. You've created a relationship that has a frame that's beneficial to both you and the girl. Okay, this is what a lot of people get wrong about game. They think it's only beneficial to the guy. No, it's beneficial to the girl. You're giving her that exciting experience, okay? You're letting her win you over, all right? And you're in the leadership position in that relationship. That's what women want. They don't want to be in the leadership position, regardless of their income level. You'll find that women, you know, they want to have a really like big fancy career. They want to have the big car and they want to have the pants. But at the end of the day, they're still searching for guys who are in the leadership position, okay, who are above them in certain aspects, okay? And so that's why a lot of women are finding it harder, actually, to find men these days because, well, why? Well, they want to go out and they want to get a fancy career. And that's off topic, guys. But either way, this is the frame that you want to have, okay? And yeah, it's just basically, it's going to help you out a lot in your interactions with women to create attraction. All right, now, once again, if you are a guy that really wants to start having some social confidence with women on another level, you want to start going on more dates consistently, you want to start attracting higher quality women, and you want to potentially work with me personally so that I can help you get there fast, you can click the link that's going to be below this video, and it's going to take you to a page where you can actually schedule a free strategy session with me. Like, I'd love to talk to you personally. I love making these videos, but I'd actually love to talk to you. You know, I coach men one-to-one on this, and basically we'll see if we can help you or not. But yeah, go ahead and do that if you'd like to make a change in your dating life.